Greenland isn't just a frozen island. It's a test case. When President Trump says the United States should own Greenland, he's not freelancing. He's reviving a very old idea, one that once defined American power in the Western Hemisphere, the Monroe Doctrine. And if Greenland is absorbed under that logic, it forces a disturbing question. Does the Arctic become the next arena where power matters more than law? Trump's interest in Greenland is often dismissed as eccentric or impulsive. That's a mistake. This isn't about minerals alone, or military bases, or even China and Russia, at least not primarily. Trump has made it clear. He views Greenland as strategic territory that should not belong to anyone weaker than the United States. That framing matters, because it's not alliance logic, it's sphere of influence logic. And that takes us straight back to the Monroe Doctrine. The original Monroe Doctrine, declared in 1823, said one thing very clearly: Europe stays out of the Americas, or else. For decades, it justified US intervention, regime change, and territorial control across the Western Hemisphere. It wasn't about international law. It was about geography plus power. Trump's version modernizes this idea. Not formally, not legally, but operationally. His logic is simple. If a territory is critical to US security and lies near US approaches, it should not be controlled by others. Greenland fits that logic perfectly. It sits astride Arctic missile paths. It anchors North Atlantic access. And crucially, it's governed by a small state. From Trump's perspective, that makes it unfinished business. Greenland is uniquely vulnerable to this kind of thinking. It is a vast, sparsely populated, rich in resources and militarily underdeveloped, and while it is legally part of the Kingdom of Denmark, it lacks the hard power to enforce that sovereignty on its own. From a Monroe Doctrine lens, this is the perfect test. Can the US expand control without triggering war? Just pressure, leverage, and inevitability? If it works once, the logic doesn't stop at Greenland. This is where Norway and Svalbard enter the picture. Svalbard is strategically critical, lightly defended, and governed under a treaty that limits militarization. It sits astride future Arctic trade routes and already hosts a Russian settlement. If the United States normalizes territorial acquisition under security logic, it doesn't matter whether Russia wants Svalbard today. What matters is that the rules protecting it weaken. Small states don't lose territory because someone invades tomorrow. They lose it when norms collapse quietly. Ironically, Trump's move on Greenland may restrain, and not unleash, Russia and China. Both countries have spent years accusing the US of hypocrisy, promoting a rules-based order while bending the rules when convenient. If the US takes Greenland, Moscow and Beijing gain something valuable: moral leverage. Instead of grabbing territory, they can position themselves as defenders of international law, especially in the eyes of the global South. In a multipolar world, legitimacy is currency. Sometimes, restraint beats expansion. Russia and China have already laid the groundwork for this. They've issued joint declarations in 2025 pledging to uphold international law. Remember how Russia's UN ambassador put it after Maduro's arrest? You wanted a rules-based order. Here it is, and even your allies are frightened by it. Paradoxically, a US move on Greenland could help Russia rehabilitate its image, not encourage it to grab Svalbard. Svalbard's survival rests on one fragile foundation: the Svalbard Treaty. It grants Norway sovereignty, but embeds shared rights for dozens of states, including the US, Russia, and China. It demilitarizes the islands and internationalizes economic access. That sounds like a vulnerability. In reality, it's a deterrent, because violating Svalbard wouldn't target one state, it would challenge 46. As long as major powers see value in that system, Svalbard remains stable. Norway's task isn't to defend Svalbard in a military sense. It's to avoid forcing a choice. That means a strict treaty compliance or avoiding NATO creep are keeping Svalbard boring in geopolitics. Boring is safety. The more Norway turns Svalbard into a platform, the more it invites Monroe Doctrine thinking from someone else. So will Svalbard be next? Probably not. But the real risk isn't a land grab. It's precedent. If Greenland becomes American because power allows it, then international law doesn't disappear. It just becomes optional. And once law becomes optional in the Arctic, every frozen island becomes negotiable. That's the real legacy of a revived Monroe Doctrine. Not conquest, but erosion.